Log 1 of the Orion Sector Research. The date is the 17th of August. I am Dr. Edwin Noel, lead cytologist and biologist here on this excursion. We are currently at a head count of 80 people in order to see if staying here is worthwhile. Our goal here is to find and document anything we can that is discovered in the permafrost on the Prince of Wales Island. As around 6 months ago, part of a preserved mammoth specimen washed up on the shores of Greenland coming off the Baffin Bay. And we have reason to believe that it came from here, as significant chunks of landmass is missing from the island. We have set up small shelters on the island. However, it is quickly apparent these won't suffice, as weather here is unpredictable and oftentimes dangerous for life. Log 7 of the Orion Sector Research. 23rd of August, Dr. Edwin Noel. It has now been a week since we arrived here, and we are still trying to solve the issues with shelter. But, in the meantime, we have started a small excavation site in the northeast of the island, around 2 or 3 days' travel from the airfield. We are currently sitting at around 10 feet below sea level in said excavation site. So far, nothing unique has been found. However, we have realized that the deeper we go, the warmer it is. So we are going to test if forming a ground colony may be the best bet for starting out. Log 25 of the Orion Sector Research. 10th of September. Dr. Edwin Noel. Since we moved into the dig site as temporary housing, morale for the group is at an all-time high, and we have now reached around 40 feet below sea level. Oddly, we are still hitting permafrost, which caught the geology team off guard as we only estimated around 20 feet. However, we have found many samples of prehistoric life. We have yet to sequence the cells to discover what they belong to. But we have also found what looks to be some sort of chiseled stone. So the archaeology team is currently looking into that. Log 58, Orion Sector, 6th of October. Dr. Edwin Noel. We have stumbled upon some sort of cave system. It definitely isn't naturally formed. Dr. Emily Nova, the lead geologist, pointed that out fairly quickly. But it is also apparently not man-made either. We have yet to fully explore the cave, as anyone that is sent down there often reports lightheadedness, nausea, headaches, and fatigue. So we believe that there may be some build-up of natural gases down there. Meaning, we will have to halt our progress until we can identify what it is, after which we shall begin our exploration. Log 372, Orion Sector, 23rd of August. Dr. Edwin Noel. Due to our recent discoveries from within the cave, we have found two things. The first being that whatever material sample 1 is, makes it a completely green and renewable source of energy. It does not seem to burn away, melt, or create any negative side effects when used as a fuel source. If damaged, it seems to almost clone itself. More testing is required to see if it's alive or not, and to see if it will cause any adverse effects to people over prolonged exposure. The second point is that sample 2 seems to be some kind of liquid metal, though it doesn't seem to be any metal that we have on record. We have also recently discovered that when the liquid is exposed to extreme cold, its state changes to that of a solid, and under a microscope, its structure is not too far from carbon fiber, meaning this could potentially be used as temporary building blocks for long-term accommodation. But More testing is still required to see if heating it back up will revert it to its liquid state. Log 849. Orion Sector. Sometime in December, if my memory can be trusted. Dr. Edwin No. I have lost track of what the exact date is. But we found something. Something big. It is doing something to us. Changing us. Turning us against each other. The fuel has awoken it. And we didn't know until it was too late. We are the architects of our own demise. Something wicked this way comes, the lure of which we cast out. We need rescue. If Central Control can hear this, send help before it finds us. I vet nog inte personerna. Det är nog vad jag. Det är nog vad jag. Om mina ringar vilånser. Vi lovar bunna skärpst bästa. Du så väsna makt. Det är nog för plan att vi ska lösa det. Det snäju. Slågst.
The Arctic Prince, written and voiced by Jack Colston. Chapter 1. Bitter Cold. Few of us have ever truly experienced the cold. Few of us have seen how ruthlessly it will break your body, mind, and spirit. The cold magnifies our flaws, reveals our every imperfection. It does not forgive mistakes. Jacob Geller. A torn and bloodied severed hand perched in the snow, the blood soaking into the gleaming white. The hand outreached towards the sky, trapped in its owner's last desperate plea, praying. Though even God was too scared to answer. A snowflake gently danced upwards off the fingers, into the flame-coloured sky, creating a murmuration as it met with the other flakes of snow, wrapping around the silhouette of a propeller plane. As the murmuration hammered against the windows of the cramped plane, nearing the last destination in its journey, looking out at the now rising sun over the Canadian wild, William Jones, a clean-shaven, somewhat tall, fairly well-built man, with brown, shaggy hair that rests just above his eyes, as he sat looking at the coordinates and last message given by the researchers in the Orion Sector field base. "Can anyone make sense of this message?" William asked, not taking his eye off the files he was holding. "Unfortunately, no. To me, at least, it just looks like random scribbles," a voice in the corner of the cabin responded. The voice belonging to one Otto Wagner, a scout sent out by the EU. Otto was a very wiry man, skin so thin you could almost see the sinew pushing out every time he moved. He had a wavy middle part of mousy brown hair, large hexagonal glasses that were firmly planted onto his arched bridged nose, and two wide-band helix piercings on his left ear. "I have tried to figure out these notes since we were given them 8 months ago, and it has come up empty. It looks to be some archaic mix of several different languages, some of which are not even known anymore. It is truly bizarre." Otto finished, rubbing the bridge of his nose in frustration. Seated next to Otto was a woman whose gaze was fixated on the piece of paper in Otto's hand. The woman had soft feathered hair that fell just above her shoulders, the bottom half of her hair being dyed a strawberry blonde colour to contrast her darker brown hair nearing the top of her head. She had a very lean build, making Otto next to her look even slimmer than he already was. May I help you, Miss Tremblay? Otto asked, quite perturbed with the level of interest she was showing in the paper in his hand. Oh, please, Otto. I have told you before. Call me Jennifer. And yes, actually, I believe I can help you. While I can't translate most of it either, I do know that this word here loosely translates to die or to leave, depending on its context, Jennifer said, pointing to a section of the scrolling on the paper. Ah, fascinating. Thank you ever so much, Miss Jennifer. I very much appreciate your help with that. Otto replied, sheepishly avoiding eye contact with Jennifer. For the majority of the flight after, everyone kept to themselves, reading the files to try and ascertain any information they could. After nearly 40 minutes of silence, that was occasionally interrupted by the turning of paper, a large barrel-chested man stood from his seat closer to the cockpit and moved towards the area where the other 3 group members were now sitting. Rick Walker, being the man in question, was a 52-year-old, tall, broad man, built like a modern-day strongman. He had a tightly coiled beard and stash that was trimmed to perfection, and a salt and peppered short fro that was more salt than pepper. Have you all got to the section of high priority researchers yet? Rick asked, looking at the files in his hand through a pair of small reading glasses. I asked because they said that 800-something people were sent here, but they're only asking us to bring back 8 or so. So I'm just a little concerned with that, because I would ideally like to find more. The others all looked at each other after processing what Rick had said. A mix of sadness, acceptance, and frustration washed over all of them. Rick, when was the last time you were tasked with a rescue mission, Bat? William asked, with a genuine air of regret in his voice. Well, if memory serves right, then I would say maybe 25 years ago, give or take. But back then we would get in, find as many people as possible, and get out as safely as we could. Has the protocol changed? As Rick asked this, the answer was already apparent on everyone's faces. The protocol had indeed changed. Unfortunately, yes, Rick, it changed 10 years ago, I believe. Now it is whoever is most valuable to shareholders. If we find others, then that's a bonus, but it is no longer the priority. Otto sighed as the words left his mouth. There was a moment of awkward silence that crept into the cabin, as Rick visibly fought with the news that not everyone down there is worth saving. Without saying anything but a solemn nod and a clearing of his throat, Rick moved back to his seat, files in hand, and gently cradled his head in his hands in the moment of realization, the files crunching underneath his forehead. The cabin once again was drowned in silence. This time, however, was not because of the diligent reading that everyone was doing, but instead a deep-set feeling of guilt was clawing at everyone, forcing them to think about the lives they may have to ignore if things are as bad as theorized down there. Half an hour passed by before the plane landed on the makeshift runway that was built for the research teams on the island. The sun, having just risen, was still casting an orange glow across the fields of snow that surrounded the runway. As the group disembarked from the plane, grabbing the supplies and tools they would potentially need, the wind gently blowing powdered snow onto their faces, a figure approached them. From a small cabin just off the runway, followed by a large dog caked with snow. The figure was relatively short, a very rotund man. His nose and cheeks were bright red from the cold. He had a long, somewhat messy, pure white beard and mustache, which worked its way up his head to stark white, medium-length hair that was snugly tucked under a trapper hat. As he approached, the group also noticed the large rifle that he had slung over his back, and his absolutely gleaming smile. "Hey there! Such a pleasure to meet you all. The name's Jordan Walsh, and this is Roxy, my Newfoundland. I'm going to be working as your guide and also the last member of your rescue team, because the higher-ups said they didn't want anyone to get injured by the wilderness here. Oh, that reminds me. Let's get you all out of the cold and into some warmer clothes. Then we can start heading off to the first base camp area." The infectious, natural joy that Jordan exudes was undeniable. And as quick as he appeared to introduce himself, he was trudging back to the little cabin that he'd emerged from. "What a friendly guy," William stated. "Undeniably so. It is actually quite nice to meet a guide that isn't like a drill sergeant," Otto retorted. The group made their way to the cabin, rucksacks in tow, as the wind started to kick up outside behind them. The cabin was very quaint. There was a desk, a bed, some small cabinets, a small stove that was attached to a wood fire, and some coat racks that were filled with identical winter clothing with the rescue team's badge ironed onto the sleeve. After everyone put on the more suitable winter clothing that was provided, as well as some extra supplies just in case anything were to happen, Jordan then pulled out a map of the island. Unsurprisingly, the map was mostly showing snowy tundra, bar the small cabin the group was in by the airfield, a large frozen lake that had small frozen streams flowing into it, and on the other side of the lake was the Orion Sector field base. "So, we're here," Jordan stated, pointing and tapping his gloved finger on a hand-drawn image of the cabin. "We want to follow this route around the lake. It'll take us around 2, maybe 3 days to travel on this route, but it's the safest way to go." "Question for you, Jordan. We are looking at the same map? Because if we are, I can already see a better way to the field base," William chimed, drawing his finger from the cabin across the lake to the Orion sector. "While, yes, that would be a much quicker route. However, unlike the other lakes on the island, this one is still fairly new and might not have completely frozen solid yet. The only time I would say for us to go onto that lake is if animals start chasing us, but ideally that won't happen," Jordan replied with an air of nervousness in his voice. What do you mean by fairly new?" Otto asked, his mind registering what Jordan had said. "Well, this lake wasn't here when the Orion sector first got here. The first reason they made it is because the ground underneath where the lake is where they found the new fuel or something. I wasn't privy to all the details. When they were mining it, they found that the equipment was heating up much faster than it normally would, so they needed to find a way to cool it down faster than it could heat up. I'm guessing that they didn't like the idea of hauling water and snow back and forth to the tools, so instead they just dug out the lake and filled it, so they could just funnel it straight into the equipment and mine as much as they wanted to," Jordan said. Giving this information caught everyone off guard. "So, because of that, I don't trust the ice. If any of us were to fall in and get wet, we would be in a world of trouble. So the longer route is just the safer one." "They built a lake? Surely that should be in the file, no?" Jennifer asked.
"Honestly, you would think so. I feel like that would have been useful information for us to know. 'cause now we have to worry about construction equipment,"
Rick replied out of the side of his mouth. After everyone finished talking, they solidified a plan of action. The plan being to leave the airfield cabin and travel through the wilderness to the east, stopping to set up camps before the sun sets and heading back out after the sun rises. After they get around the lake, then to head north to the Orion Sector field base and search for any people they've been tasked to find. So, the group set out into the blistering cold, the snowy wind lashing against their clothes and what small amount of skin was exposed. Their packs were securely strapped to their backs, and any equipment that couldn't fit in their packs were put on a small freight sled that was pulled by Roxy the Newfoundland, who seemed happy to be helping out. The wind didn't let up for hours, slowing the group down a bit. After it took them nearly 2 hours of trudging through knee-high snow, they eventually got to one of the small rivers that led to the lake. "I think we might have to sit here and wait for the wind to let up," William shouted, as the wind stole the air from his lungs.
"It'll slow our travel, but good God, I have to agree. I'm losing feeling in my fingers,"
Rick yelled back. "As the professional, I agree. If it was up to me, I would carry on, but with a group this big, we need to all keep our strength up, and this wind will sap it from us," Jordan called out, stopping the group. "Let's find some shelter and rest there for a couple of hours. There is a fallen tree here. It seems to be out of the way of the wind. We can set some stuff up here to make sure the cold stays out," Otto shouted, after which he started clearing out a bit of snow. The rest of the group helped remove the snow. They set up a makeshift shelter to keep the wind and cold out. The group all began resting there, warming themselves up. The only sounds from the wilderness around them was the wind clawing through trees. After an hour, the wind had finally died down a little bit. Not fully stopped, but stopped enough to make the journey more simple again. The group continued eastwards. The surroundings could now be seen much more clearly. The snow-covered conifers and pine trees towering overhead, the lake to the left of the group, the ice glistening in the sun, and in the center of the lake, some sort of basalt pillar pierced into the lake. The pillar itself and the surrounding dirt seemingly untouched by the snow and cold. A green scab plastered onto the white backdrop. Otto was the only one to really take notice of this, and his curiosity was overwhelming. But he knew that he couldn't go and inspect it, as if he were to leave the group then he could get lost or injured. But why was it green? Why is it the only part of the wilderness that the snow isn't sticking to? Is it because the mining equipment is still releasing heat? Is it a chemical reaction? All he would need to do is take a small sample and bring it back. He could unearth something big. A government-funded environmental hazard. A random ecological dead zone. Suddenly, Otto slammed straight into Rick's back with a muffled thump. "Ow! Why did you stop?" Otto asked, making sure his footing was stable.
"Shut the fuck up for a second, Otto,"
Rick responded, hissing through his teeth, and gingerly pointing ahead of the group. Stood in front of the group, around 15 feet away, was an elk. But also maybe not an elk. It was stood in a clearing between two trees, looking at the group, silhouetted by the sun breaking through the fog of snow, cascading down onto this creature. It was easily pushing 7 feet tall at the shoulder. But that wasn't the most jarring thing about this elk. What really caused the group to stop dead in their tracks was that the antlers of this elk was nearly double its height across. It also had little trinkets of some kind attached to its antlers by some sort of string. Small rocks, twigs and bones tied ever so neatly in bundles or iconography? And on its hind legs, a pattern seemingly painted onto it, like how a farmer paints their sheep. "Jordan, is this type of elk always on this island?" William asked in a hush whisper. "This is the first time I've ever seen anything like it. We have caribou, sure, but that isn't a caribou." Jordan responded in equally hushed tones.
Okay, so there's just a random massive fuck-off elk wandering around this island then. I suppose we are lucky it isn't rutting season, or we'd be dealing with a pissed-off, hormonal, roided-up elk. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to gently move forward, grab a stick or a rock, and throw it near it. Not at it, because that might piss it off, but near it. I want you all to follow my lead, because again, if this thing charges us, God knows what kind of damage it could cause. So, everyone, slowly bend down and grab something that can be thrown to deter this elk from charging. Before William could finish his sentence, a deafening boom rang out in the forest. The elk darting away, Rick standing there, one of the barrels from his shotgun smoking. Or, I could just do that,
Rick said, his expression filled with impatience.
Sure, I guess you could do that. Fucking 8 years of zoological study for what? For what? Big man with a gun.
William mumbled to himself.
Well, I'm gonna ignore Will's childish mumbles.
Rick chuckled.
But, does anyone know what that was? 'Cause I've been hunting elk before, and that was something else.
I've been on and off this island for nearly a decade now, and that was the first time I've seen anything like that.
I wish I took a photo of it,
Jordan replied, in awe at what he'd just witnessed.
Did anyone else notice the symbols and icons on the elk?
Jennifer asked, walking up to where the elk once stood.
I have never seen anything like those ones before. And who would have put them there? This island is uninhabited, correct? The only people, quote-unquote, living here are the researchers. But I can't see why they would decorate an elk. You say that, but they also made a lake, so who knows what they were doing here. Isolation for prolonged periods of time can lead people to do some odd things. So, should we carry on, or do we want to look around here for a little while?
Otto inquired.
Otto, as much as I would like to say yes, I don't think there is enough time for us to do so.
William replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose. I can put a trail marker down if you'd like. A lot of this clearing might get covered up, but we can come back here after we find people. William's right. We have to keep moving. We only have a couple of hours of sunlight left. Jordan's words were like a bucket of cold water, bringing everyone back from their shock and awe. Jordan pulled a metal piton from the freight sled that Roxy was pulling, as well as a long piece of cloth. He planted the piton into the frozen earth and tied the cloth around the top of the piton, creating a makeshift flag. The group trudged onwards, through the snow, away from the marker, towards the Orion sector. The sun now beginning to set, the warmer light falling behind the powdered trees, plunging the wilderness into darkness. The group, now forced to find a place to rest for the night, they managed to find a small clear grove amongst the trees. After compacting an area of snow, the tents were erected and a small barricaded area was built for the fire. The group managed to cook some of the rations and all sit and finally relax next to the now roaring flame.
God, these rations taste like garbage,
Rick said, forcing down his food. Yeah, but I suppose it's better than starving, no? Jordan replied, a deep chuckle resonating within him. I don't think I've asked this yet, and forgive me if this is too forward. But you all seem to already know each other. Have you all done jobs together before? Otto, Jennifer, and I have. We, for some reason, have been sent out together for nearly, 10 years now? William responded.
I believe that it is because we all have expertise in many different facets of research.
Since we no longer get sent out for purely rescues anymore. Around 6 months ago, we were sent together to an ancient Mayan temple. I am a religious historian.
Jennifer is a linguist and some sort of paleontologist or something. And William is a zoologist and a medic.
Otto spoke, his head not leaving his notebook as he wrote down what he'd seen today.
I do not know how many times I have to tell you. I am not a paleontologist, I am an archaeologist, and I know that you know the difference between the two. You just like to piss me off. Jennifer yelled with a mix of laughter as she threw a bit of snow at Otto, who was now chuckling to himself. What about you, Rick? Jordan asked, also chuckling at the two winding each other up.
This would be my first field mission with these lot. But I've known William for a good couple of years now. He was the only person who took my marksman lessons seriously and actually listened to me. He also comes to my house once every month for food. He says it's to catch up with me, but I just think he likes my wife's cooking,
Rick said, laughing as he bumped William in the arm. Well, she does make a killer mac and cheese, but no, I do visit to catch up with you. And when I heard you were coming on this rescue mission, I was shocked, actually. I thought you would have retired by now. I mean, you were working behind the scenes for so long, I thought you had retired years ago.
Well, I was gonna. But then they offered me double my pension if I went on this job. And I can't refuse that. After all the years my wife's put up with me doing jobs like this, she deserves to be treated. So, the least I can do for her is make sure we never have to worry about money again. And we can enjoy our golden years together. I would also like to visit my family back in Jamaica. God, I ain't spoken to them lot in years,
Rick said, as he pulled a packet of cigarettes out of his bag and offered one to Otto, which he promptly accepted. If I remember correctly, the last time that Otto and I hung out with you was when you were overseeing the boot camp for the new recruits? Jennifer asked.
I actually think it was before that. It was during the party after your promotion, Jane. You, Otto, and I sat on the balcony and talked for hours. Went through an entire packet of smokes.
Rick's face was filled with pride and nostalgia as the group talked about their pasts. Ah, yes, of course. How could I forget that? Jennifer said with a smile from year to year. What about you, Jordan? We have only just met you for this rescue. Do you have a story, my friend? I suppose I do have a story. I started my work here mainly to get away from the life in the cities. Me and my husband lived in Toronto for must have been nearly 30 years or so. We wanted kids, but never got around to it. But we did get Roxy, his hand gently drifting down over to the huge head of the dog beside him. But then, 10 years ago, my husband passed, and city living became too much for me. So I took on jobs in fire towers, national park areas, and then eventually for this research station. I'm only permitted to work 6 months of the year, so it means I get very nice holidays. Jordan laughed. The type of laugh that shows a person is steadily healing. A hearty, honest laugh. Jennifer's hand reached down and found purchase on Jordan's knee, and the rest of the group offered their support as well, all comforting this stranger who had opened up to them all. I lost my partner too, Jennifer said, offering support to Jordan. Granted, I was only with them for a little while, and it has been many years since they passed. I can understand how lonely that can be. So, even though we have only known each other for nearly a full day, if you ever need an ear to talk to, I am here. Her words hitting Jordan like a truck, tears welling in his eyes, and his hand gently placed on hers. The group paused there for a moment, in solemn silence, the sound of the gentle crackling of burning firewood, echoing out into the surrounding grove, the gentle light flickering around them all, embracing them all in well-earned warmth. Let's get some rest. I'll take first watch, William said, and so the group broke off to their respective tents, while William sat by the fire, Roxy laying next to him. Time ticked by, and the moon etched its way along the star-painted sky. As William fought to keep his eyes open, an hour passed, and a gentle hand found its way onto his shoulder. "First shift is over," Otto said, relieving William of his duty. "Oh. Cheers, Bat. Make sure the fire doesn't go out," William replied as he dragged his feet back to his tent. As he walked to his tent, the cold night wind now brushing against his face, William noticed something. A light. Cresting over a small snowy embankment behind the grove. Almost like another fire. Otto? We didn't make another fire, did we?" William asked, not taking his eyes off the dancing light. "Not to my knowledge. Why?" "'Cause I'm currently looking at another source of light that apparently we didn't make. You're absolutely sure none of us built another fire over this embankment?" "Yes, I am sure. Are you just seeing things, or is it actually there?" "It seems pretty fucking real to me. Hang on. I'm gonna go and peek." William gingerly approached the embankment, the knife from his boot now drawn. He crested the embankment to see what the source of light was. And he was correct. It was indeed a fire. Holy shit. "Otto? Wake everyone up now. They need to see this." "Oh, for fuck's sake, what are you talking about?" Otto hissed back as he moved towards William and saw what William was talking about. "Holy shiz. I will wake everyone up." Otto ran to the rest of the group and woke everyone up as quickly as he could. As he was doing so, Roxy moved up next to William, her hackles raised. As she looked at what William was seeing, a low growl emanating from her. "Why the fuck have we been woken up, Will? You better have a good reason for this, or so help me God," Rick spat, wiping the sleep from his eyes. Otto ushered the group to crest the embankment, and they all ended up seeing what William was stunned by. Behind the embankment was indeed a fire. A small campfire, smaller than the one the group had made. The fire was ensconced in a stone circle to make sure it didn't spread, the light shining a hauntingly illuminating light on everything else in the space. Just behind the campfire was a pyre. A large wooden pyre of some kind. Easily 20 feet tall and 10 foot wide. Calling it a pyre is the closest thing it could be. It was in the shape of something. A symbol of some kind, the edges of which were scratching the bark of the trees around it. The snow at the base had been drawn in. A large circle, with runes and etchings clawed into the snow, with rivulets, filled with now frozen blood, that dripped down from the two human corpses that were tied into the canopy of the trees, like a butcher would tie a bleeding pig. The faces swollen and bruised from the pooling blood. The more the group looked, the more they saw, their eyes adjusting to the stark darkness in this space. There were corpses everywhere. 7 corpses piled around the base of the pyre, keeping it propped up. Body parts pinned into trunks of trees or hung in branches like perverse Christmas decorations. Small bundles of twigs, stones, or bones hung around or from some of the corpses. The snow stained a deep, muddy red. "What the fuck?" Rick said, holding back the urge to vomit. "It looks like a ritual of some kind," Jennifer interjected. "An archaic one, but a ritual nonetheless. But my questions are, a ritual to what? And who sets this up?" Almost out of instinct, the group hesitantly approached, curiosity overriding their logic. As they all edged closer, they saw that on one of the bodies hung upside down, bleeding into the circle, they had tatters of what looked like lab coats. In fact, a lot of the materials here looked like lab coats that were worn and ripped. Some like claw marks, others made by a weapon of some kind. Jordan, are you sure that no one else is on this fucking island? I'm absolutely positive. Something horrid has happened here, and I don't know what could have caused this. Before Jordan could finish his sentence, 2 arrows shot out from the darkness between the trees, one narrowly missing Jordan, the other striking Rick squarely in the shoulder. Gah! Fuck! Rick cried out, the arrow firmly embedded in the meat of his shoulder. Roxy started barking wildly as from the shadowed trees a figure stepped forward. Then another, then another, then another. The first figure to advance seemed to be a woman. A tall, slender frame, ragged, matted long black hair, a blood-soaked and torn lab coat, with a name tag that read, Dr. Ravina Evans. The photo on the name tag crudely scratched off, and adorned on her face a mask. A mask made from bones and twigs with large faux antlers firmly affixed to the top. No words escaped her. All that could be heard was the whistling of air from her slit throat. The rest of the figures wore similar attire, but their masks lacked the antlers. Beside the other figures, 8 pairs of glowing, beady eyes slowly emerged next to them. Large wolves, larger than any wolf any of the group had seen before, prowled out of the shadows following their leaders. The woman lifted her arm, and a mountainous, semi-frozen bubble of blood formed around her neck. As the whistle grew more intense, like a sickening drone, until it finally popped, the sound of clotted blood and frozen platelets hitting the sodden ground beneath her, as the wolves started to move towards the group, teeth bared and hackles raised, as prey was in their sight.